What is a paradox? Hi, welcome to Curious Kids Every Day. I'm Josh. How are you doing today? It's so good to hear from you. Hey, I've got an interesting puzzle that I need your help to solve. Do you want to try it? Okay, can you tell me if the thing that I'm about to say is true or false? These next 4 words. These words are false. Is that true or false? These words are false. Well, let's think about it. If the sentence is false, that means what I said is not correct. But what I said was, these words are false. So it's wrong that it's false. Does that make it true? But if those words are true, then what it says must be correct. But what does it say? It says, these words are false. So if it's true, then it's false. When I say these words are false, I've created something called a paradox. What's a paradox? Well, imagine someone says to you, I'm lying right now. Well, if they're lying, then they're actually telling you the truth because they said they are lying. But if they're telling the truth is they said they're lying. So they're lying? Which means they're telling the truth? They're telling the truth about lying? Or they're lying about telling the truth? That doesn't make any sense. See, it's a paradox. A paradox is a statement that seems to contradict itself, but may nonetheless be true somehow. It's kind of like when you have 2 rules and both can't be true at the same time, but it still seems like they are. It creates a paradox. My kids love talking about paradoxes, and there are so many interesting ones in our world to think about. Do you want to learn some of them today? Most statements we hear every day are simple. It's raining outside. I'm hungry. The dog is sleeping. They're either true or they're false. But a paradox is different. It's a statement that seems like it should make sense, but when you really think about it carefully, something about it's a little bit off. It contradicts itself. There are all kinds of paradoxes, so here's a classic one. This one is called the barber paradox. Okay, imagine a town with only one barber. Do you know what a barber is? A barber is someone who cuts your hair or shaves your beard. So the rule of the town is this. The barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves, and only those people. Okay, so the barber shaves everybody who doesn't shave themselves, but he only shaves those people. Okay, that seems like it makes sense. Until you think about it, because does the barber shave himself? Well, let's listen again. The barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves, and only those people. So, if he does shave himself, then he can't shave himself, because he only shaves people who don't shave themselves. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he must shave himself, because he shaves everyone who doesn't shave themselves. It's a loop with no answer. It's a paradox. Now, this next paradox is one we've talked about on the show before. Do you remember in our time travel episode, we talked about the grandfather paradox? This is the one where you travel back in time and accidentally prevent your grandfather from ever being born. Now, if he's never born, well, then your parents were never born. And would you be born if your parents weren't born? Nope, your parents were the ones who had you. But if you weren't born, then who traveled back in time and stopped your grandfather from being born? It's a paradox because the events cancel each other out while also being dependent on each other. Now, here's one we haven't talked about before. We'll call this one the unexpected cake paradox. Let's say your mom says that she's going to give you a cake on a very specific day next week between Sunday and Saturday. All right, so it could be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. But the day of the cake will be a surprise, and you will not see it coming. Okay, so obviously, you start thinking really hard about which day it's going to be, obviously. You might say, well, it can't be Saturday because Saturday is the last day, and if I haven't gotten my cake by then I'll for sure know it's that day, so it cannot be Saturday. All right, that leaves us 6 days. Then you think, well, if Saturday is impossible, then Friday must be impossible too. Because if I get to Friday and still haven't gotten any cake, I'll know it can't happen on Saturday, so it must be today. But now Friday is not a surprise either, so Friday is out. That's 2 days gone. And then the same reasoning knocks out Thursday and Wednesday and Tuesday and Monday and even Sunday. You end up proving that no day is possible. But then, surprise, one day, next week, your mom gives you cake anyway. And you didn't see it coming because you proved to yourself you wouldn't be surprised. Your whole chain of proof falls apart the moment the cake arrives. That's why it's a paradox. Now, the next paradox is a fun one. It's called the Pinocchio paradox. In the story of Pinocchio, do you remember what happens when he tells a lie? Right, his nose grows. So what happens if Pinocchio were to say, "My nose is about to grow"? Well, if that's true, his nose should grow. But his nose only grows when he's lying. But if he's lying, then his nose should grow. Tricky, tricky. Okay, let's talk about one more paradox. And this is one we've talked about on an episode of the show about black holes. But it's just such a good one, I want to talk about it again. Let's look at one of the most famous paradoxes in modern science. We call it the black hole information paradox. See, in physics, information means details about how particles are arranged. Basically, what makes something what it is. The laws of physics say that information can't be destroyed. So, for example, let's talk about cake again. If you blew up a cake, you made a cake explode. It gets destroyed, sure, it's not there anymore. But all of the parts of the cake don't stop existing. They just get transformed into millions of tiny pieces all over the place. Some might be liquid, some solid, some gas. You can destroy something, but physics tells us that the information about what that thing was will always exist, even if it's in another form. But that rule gets tricky when you think about black holes. See, the gravity inside of a black hole is so strong that nothing can escape it. And gravity that strong will just crush anything into nothing. So if you throw something into a black hole, it seems like the information about what it was, whether it's a rock or a star or a spaceship, it gets lost forever once it crosses the event horizon. But we know that can't happen because the rules of physics say the information must survive somehow. So how can something get completely crushed into nothing without the information getting lost? Scientists have argued for decades about where the information goes. Does it leak out slowly? Does it get smeared across the surface of the black hole? Is it stored in a different way that we don't understand yet? Does it travel into a wormhole to another place in space? Or another dimension? The paradox is basically, how can something get crushed into nothing by gravity, but the information about that thing still exists somewhere? It kind of reminds me of that saying, what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force? Imagine if you had a wall that nothing, and I mean nothing, could break through. But then you had a train that was heading towards that wall, and the rule of the train was that nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop that train from moving. What happens if something that can't stop moving hits something that cannot break? Now that's a paradox. Paradoxes don't always mean something is impossible. Sometimes they teach us that our rules and assumptions need a closer look. They show us that the world and our minds are more complicated than we think. It's a reminder that for as much as we know, there's still a lot we don't. That almost sounds like a paradox right there. We know a lot, but we don't know much at all. And that's why we keep asking questions. Okay, let's have a quick quiz. What do we call a statement that seems to contradict itself? We call it a paradox. And what paradox involves someone who only shaves people who don't shave themselves? We call that the barber paradox. And what kind of story often uses the grandfather paradox? A lot of times you find that in time travel stories. There's a lot of really fun movies that use the grandfather paradox. Let's play true or false. True or false? A paradox always has a clear, simple answer. False. Now, some paradoxes may have a clear, simple answer, but we just don't understand it yet. True or false? Some paradoxes help scientists rethink ideas. That is true. Okay, one more. True or false? A paradox is the same as a mistake. That is false. Would you rather try to solve a brain-bending paradox or a giant, complicated jigsaw puzzle? I think that the answer to this question might tell us a little bit about the kind of personality you have. See, a paradox is really, it's something that maybe we'll never be able to understand, but it still is really fun to think about. And a jigsaw puzzle is still a very complicated puzzle, but it's one with a definite answer that you can reach if you work hard enough. So, are you the kind of person who would like to sit and think about things that we may never understand? Or somebody who wants to just sit down and work through a puzzle until you get the answer? There's no right or wrong answer here. We need both kinds of people in our world, and I'm grateful that both kinds of people exist. Okay, let's play a couple of rounds of What Am I? What am I? I have hands, but I can't clap. I'm always moving, even when you are asleep. People look at me to know what happens next. What am I? I am a clock. All right, one more. What am I? I'm usually saved for special moments. I'm made by mixing ingredients. And sometimes people put candles on top of me. What am I? Yep, it's a cake. You know, we love trying to think of fun paradoxes at our house. Can you come up with any? Paradoxes are a really neat reminder that we might not know as much as we think we do. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. That way, instead of assuming we always know the answers to everything, we can keep asking questions. And the more questions we ask, the more we learn. What kind of question do you think we'll ask tomorrow on Curious Kids Every Day? I can't wait to find out. So until then, keep asking questions and stay curious, kids. And for all the grown-ups listening, please visit CuriousKidsEveryday.com to get a free printable with activity ideas that don't involve screens. Those are the best kinds of adventures to have. And if you want to join the Curious Kids Club and get an activity sheet for every new episode of the show, visit supportcuriouskids.com. See you tomorrow!